From ABC News Radio, KMET 1490 in Southern California. This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. I'm your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today we get to talk to a guy that has all of the secrets. Jordan West is the CMO for Little and Lively, a clothing company, but also the host of Secrets to Scaling Your E-commerce Brand, a podcast with all the answers. Welcome out to the show, Jordan.
Yes. You guys can expect every answer to any question you've ever had, business and not, today. So
that's it.
Get ready.
Only the ones that were secret. If it wasn't a secret, then you don't got it. It's only the secret answers.
Totally.
Okay, so on this show, we talk about the entrepreneurial journey. But I've got to ask this first, and then we'll dive in. So you, in one of your talking points, say how we made $250,000 of e-commerce sale in 24 hours without Facebook ads. We got to start there. Tell me about that.
Sure. We can kind of start at where we're at right now and what is, because I really think that strategy and tactic is actually working right now. And then we can definitely walk back to, the problem with this is that you don't hear all the heartache that happened before.
We're going to go through that. So first give us the wow, and then we'll dive through the heartache.
Yeah. And so this $250,000 of e-com sales in 24 hours, we've repeated this multiple times now, as much inventory as we have. So we have a baby clothing brand, and we also have a women's clothing brand, and they are on the same website. They're sort of together. We built this VIP community over the years on Facebook and on SMS. And so we use what we like to call the gated launch strategy. I learned this strategy when I was reading Jonah Berger's book, Contagious. He talked about this brand that was, it was a clothing brand, and it was really like just going downhill. It just kind of had generic sort of clothing. And so all that they did was they decided to password protect the website and then give the list, their email list at that time, the password. And then they just started selling out of everything all the time. So I'm like, so of course I read this 4 years ago and didn't implement it till this year. And I was always kind of kicking around. I'm like, how do you execute that exactly? So we decided to build a VIP community within a Facebook group. And we told them, if you join this VIP community, you have to have purchased from us before. And if you join this VIP community, you are going to get early access to sales. And so we first started it by we just let people know, hey, just so you know, we just launched this product, and go to the website. And they would just go to the website, and then we would let the general public know. So we would do that just on the Facebook group. But we added SMS into this. And I think that's really where everything really exploded, was when we added SMS to our VIP system. And so this was sometime mid-August of 2020. We're having a great year sales-wise. And we were about to release a new collection. We decided, hey, you know what we should do? Let's password protect the website for 12 hours before, give people the password, and that's the only way that they can actually get into the website for the first 2 hours. And so I had a sneaking suspicion it was going to work. Nothing like what I saw. We do launches, and a good launch was generally about $50,000. That was a good, people are paying full price, right? There's no discounts. Yep. We're not running ads necessarily to these launches, and $50,000 for the first day is like, oh, it's great. That's a good launch, and we just kind of keep going with that. So we decided though to completely password protect the site. So the site was down for about 12 hours, which is great because it allowed our team to get all the listings ready, and it was just an easier sort of way to do that. Then at 10 a.m. Pacific, we gave the password to the VIP group and sent it via SMS. And I was just sitting on Google Analytics, and I was looking, and suddenly I see like 3,500 people on the website, and then like 4,000, and then 5,000. I'm like, oh my gosh, these people are like, and then the orders just coming through. So the first 2 hours, I think we did about 120K of sales. We were just absolutely astounded. And in that whole 24 hours, we actually did over 250,000 in that first 24 hours. I've repeated it twice now since then. And every time, the only reason we didn't hit that kind of number is just because we sold out of each of the other launches. So we manufacture in Canada. So there are some constraints on manufacturing that we're really trying to solve, with our core value being locally manufactured. So we may actually vertically integrate that as well this year, or next year, depending on what that looks like. So we saw some like incredible things.
I love that. So to kind of like summarize it, right? it sounds simple if you simplify it. You simply password protected the website, added a bunch of new products, and then gave your past buyers and your VIP buyers access to the password before you opened it up to the rest of the world. And that's it.
That's literally it.
So what was a normal day of sales before that? Because if you did 250K in 24 hours, that could be amazing. Or it's like, well, we used to do 1 million, right? So what was normal sales? What was like an average daily sale prior to that?
10,000 ish.
Okay.
Is sort of like a normal
25x a normal day. Like that's massive. That's so.
But not
cool.
only that, it was like the days after that, it built this hype, right, around the brand. That the days after that, the next day we did 50,000, and then we did 40,000. So it was like our sales stayed up, and we didn't run Facebook ads for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Because we couldn't fulfill. We do internal fulfillment as well. So it's like we just couldn't take any more orders.
Right. I love it. Okay, Jordan, now we're going to go back. Talk to me. How did you fall off of the taco truck into an ambulance and into the world of entrepreneurship? When was the first day you realized you are an entrepreneur?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so really it did start as being a paramedic. I started, I think, when I was 21 years old. I thought, oh, this is just like a great way to serve people. I really liked helping. I knew I didn't want to go to med school. That wasn't something, I just didn't want to spend all that time. So I'm like, oh, I'll become a paramedic. That sounds great. And really, really loved it. But I always had this ache for entrepreneurship. So of course I went to Craigslist, and I found a Taco Del Mar restaurant. So anybody on the West Coast would probably know Taco Del Mar. They had a big spike at one point. It's not like that anymore. I actually have a call next week with their CEO. He wants to chat ideas. So
nice.
So I bought the store. It was $35,000. They were going through a bankruptcy at the time. They did actually get bought by Subway, which is cool at the time. I thought that was going to really revive the brand. So $35,000. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like it's a $35,000 business school, really. No, it wasn't. It was about $150,000 business school and about a 5-year business degree rather than 4 years.
Right.
I'll consider I have my MBA actually after that one. and just the heartache going through that. I bought it when I was 23 years old, so I had no credit. We did own an apartment that we were living in, but it was so difficult to, get credit to do that. So I was working, as a full-time paramedic. I was working as a painter, just trying to pump money into this business. The one thing I actually did do is I tripled the sales throughout all that time. Yeah. But we still lost all the money. It was.
So that was your first big soiree into entrepreneurship, was buying a restaurant. Is that right?
It was. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's really how I got into it.
What's the number one thing you learned from the restaurant that you still apply into your businesses today?
Strengths. So I feel like I am incredibly self-aware of what I am good at and what I'm not good at. And so I bring partners in. We're making a couple acquisitions right now, and I know the parts of those two businesses that I am incredibly good at, and I'm bringing in a partner to operate everything, because that is just not me. We use Clifton strengths in all of our organizations to be able to really dig down to see what the strengths makeup actually looks like practically. Yeah. And for me, that's been a huge game changer using them.
I think it's something that's really fascinating. For so many years, it seems like the culture of business was to fix your weaknesses. Like, okay, identify your weaknesses, find ways, study, learn, get mentors, fix them. And I feel like there's this resurgence of no, like glaring weaknesses that are destroying you. Yes. Other than that, lean into your strengths and find people or processes or tools to handle your weaknesses. You're going to get so much further leaning into your strengths than trying to fix your weaknesses. Do you agree?
Totally. And that's, 100%. We have, somebody who's walked us through Clifton Strengths, a mentor for all of our businesses. We bring them in, and what she calls them is pointy people, right? We want pointy people who are good at certain things, right? And that's really hard as, if there's any CEOs listening, you want to be good at everything, and you want to, I've heard, people who, maybe haven't had the same success say, I want to know every part of the business and how it runs. And I want to be involved in every part of the business in some sort of aspect. And for me, I'm like, no, I want to be involved in, for me, I'm relational and influence. And so those are the things that I'm going to do that really actually make change. They're the, $10,000 an hour tasks that I do daily that actually make change.
Awesome. So so you got out of the restaurant. How did you get started in Little and Lively? How did this idea come about?
Yeah, so my wife went to fashion design school, and like most people who go to fashion design school, didn't use it. Afterwards, she had applied for some jobs in fashion, and it's just really hard to actually use that skill. I think unless you're an entrepreneur, or you live in New York or maybe
Right.
down in Vancouver, where there's some of those bigger brands. And so we had our first child. We still owned Taco Del Mar at the time, and we were using cloth diapers. So if anybody hears that and cringes, yes, I cringed as well. And we didn't use them for long, but luckily, they started this business. So
Sure.
my wife was trying to put leggings over top of our daughter, and they wouldn't fit. Nothing would fit over top of diapers. It was just like it, and if it did, it just kind of only went like halfway. And so her being in fashion design, making a legging pattern is so simple.
Right.
So she's like, okay, I'm going to make these leggings. And friends started to see them and thought like, oh my gosh, that's the problem. I didn't really realize that was a problem that you solved. And it's such a simple problem solving exercise. And so she brought them to craft markets. She was selling jewelry at the time at craft markets, was doing fairly well for the time at that. And brought them to craft markets, and they would just sell out every time. And then we went on to Etsy, and we started to have local home sewers. So we, her and I together were cutting fabric.
Wow.
I remember I was still a full-time paramedic at this point. I had just gotten off of a night shift, and she was cutting fabric in the garage. She cut off part of her finger.
Oh my goodness.
And woke me up after a night shift of paramedicing. And
wow.
And I still remember that moment. There's just all these great moments along the journey now, seeing sort of where we're at. And cutting fabric was one of those. We bought the big fabric cutter, and and it was just what we had to do to grow to where we're at today. And so I think it was in about it's either 2015 or 2016. We'd grown, I think we were doing like 100,000 in sales or something, right? Awesome. I mean, at that point, you're fairly profitable. For us, that was like that replaced her income, and it was great. And we decided, I asked her, I said, can I start running Facebook ads? Like, I'd started to hear a little bit about this. Must have been about 2015. Like, hey, can I start running some Facebook ads? I look back on those campaigns because we were tracking through Shopify at that point, and I didn't know. I knew nothing about return on ad spend. I knew nothing about anything. I was running engagement campaigns. So for those of you who don't know Facebook ads, I was just running campaigns just to get people to engage. And our return on ad spends are like 70 in that time. I still look back. Yeah, it's hilarious because I had no clue what I was doing. I just knew we had a great product that we were putting in front of the right audience, and that was it. Right. And that's still what it is, right? People get so upset about iOS 14 and all these things. And it's like, you got a good product? People want to buy it?
That's the thing. It is 90%. If your offer doesn't suck, then things are fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if you know who you're selling it to, then you're okay, right? Yeah. Like, it's those two things. It's simply offer and positioning, right? Like, and I mean, and if your product's great, then people will buy again, right? It's not complicated.
Yeah, totally. And that's really it, right? It's not like things have really changed over the years, like as though e-commerce is this brand new sort of thing that we have to learn how to sell differently to people. It's just, you're still selling human to human.
Yep.
It's like anything, right? Get good feedback and iterate and find products that people actually want to buy and that actually change people's lives for the better. Like a good shirt, it actually changes your life for the better, in my opinion. Like I reach for, certain shirts. We make some men's shirts, and I reach for them every single day, because if I didn't have that, I'd feel uncomfortable. It just wouldn't be the same thing. So that's my little piece of advice. So we've grown from that to, now we're sort of mid 7 figures, and growing, pretty substantially through acquisitions, there's only so much you can grow, with our team and with our manufacturing locally year over year.
Yeah. What types of things are you acquiring? Are you acquiring other brands? Are you covering like, styles? Like what is a children and women's clothing on, boutique? What are they acquiring?
Yeah. So we're acquiring, our next acquisition is going to be in jewelry.
Oh, cool.
I think that's a really good space. Mommy and Me is really big for us. So having a Mommy and Me jewelry brand. So we're really trying to reach into our networks and find people who are interested in getting out now in that space. For me, my 2 big acquisitions right now are actually in the outdoor space.
Oh, cool.
So they there's going to be a lot of overlap behind the scenes with those. And for me, I'm a huge outdoor guy, mountain biker, hiker. I get out skier. Like I love that stuff. And so for me, this is more of a passion project, passion/business project for me.
Yeah, I love that. I was just looking through the site. Like I didn't even realize you guys had some adult stuff, and I think that's cool. I'm gonna have to order some of those men's shirts. But how have you handled, as you guys have learned, you've built this business from idea to now doing pretty well, right? So throughout that process, there's multiple challenges. One was like not cutting fingers off anymore, right? And then, but learning and then outsourcing. I'm sure you're not still just you and your wife cutting all of the fabric, right? So you're growing systems and machines and teams and all this stuff. What was probably one of the biggest challenges you had to face in the early days, and how'd you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge, and for anybody who works with a spouse, you may understand this, and it was just us working together. And then as we're growing a team, figuring out how that works, right? So I was really heavy on the marketing side. I think that's really where my sort of superpowers were. And for her, she was really heavy on the design side. We needed to figure out what leadership looked like, right? Yeah. And so for both of us to be day-to-day in that business was not going to work. And so for me, I started doing some consulting, and, I was like, oh, okay, I'll just like help people with their marketing, and I'll just do the marketing over here. And, one thing led to another. And if there's any agency owners listening, you'll know, of course, this is the agency story, right? Where we just grew the agency and sort of kept that semi-vertically integrated in the businesses. So especially as we're making acquisitions, having an agency just makes so much sense. People trained up thinking how I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice because you have, by having the agency side and your own brand side, you have kind of that cross support, right? And yeah, it makes that's how we started our agency as well. I had a handful of brands. I needed a team to help on the marketing. I built it in-house. And then when I sold the brands off, we still had the agency. And so, and then now that's our current focus while we get ready to launch some new brands this year that we're pretty excited about. Navigating the working with somebody you're close to, takes a lot of delicate maneuvering, right? What about with the business? Like, okay, you're building a brand on Shopify, you're figuring out fulfillment and these kind of things. I love the physical product space so much because I feel like you become a part of someone's life. Like what you said, like they literally put their clothes on as part of their identity. And this is something that came from your wife's brain into your team. Like your team maps it out, and then someone orders it on a website because they saw an ad, and then now that they're wearing it. And that journey is so fascinating and so like transcendent to me that I just love it. So as you guys started growing on that side, right, and you're shipping more and you're figuring out how to do new quantities and things like that, how did you think, what were some of the challenges you had to navigate?
Well, I mean, definitely manufacturing, right? Like, especially manufacturing locally, knowing how much to order. I'm sure this year we just sold out, right? We're always sold out of everything because it's so hard to know what people are going to buy, right? We make all of these new designs every, two times a year, we do huge launches, but really figuring out what people want specifically and then what sizes. And especially as our mass customer demographic grows, right? On the women's side, they're probably not growing. I mean, unless during COVID. But on the baby side, we're seeing our 3 years ago, it was 3T to 4T was the biggest size, right? And now we have this mass amount of people who are ordering 7 to 8. We're like, oh no, our customers are all growing. We really need to start thinking about acquisition and bringing them in on this side. But I mean, manufacturing locally is probably the best thing that we could do, even though it is more expensive. But it's also so difficult just to know inventory levels, right? I think that cash flow and inventory are those ones, especially between, you get to about $1 million in sales, and that jump between 1 and 3 to 5, like where do you get the cash from? Yeah. Right. If you're not venture capital backed, every single collection, I think we're probably putting about $1 million into this next collection, right? Luckily, we've been profitable and we have the money to invest back in. Most people don't have that money to invest, and we didn't, right? We were broke when we started.
Well, yeah, but you didn't order $1 million your first collection. I was talking about this with someone yesterday where it's amazing how many times someone will think, okay, I'm going to launch the next Little and Lively, or I'm going to launch the next supplement company or whatever it is, and they just go and buy all the inventory. I'm like, you haven't even built a community or an audience or anything. Yes. Like don't,
you haven't even validated your product.
Yeah. Don't jump to like Little and Lively's step 400 and just think if you build it, they will come. Like that's one of the greatest entrepreneurial fallacies around. Like start small. And so like you guys have stepped and gotten up to this point where you can invest $1 million into a launch because you know that it's going to be profitable from your experience and you've built to that point and that sort of thing. So I think that's amazing. What's your advice to other people thinking of getting into the apparel world?
I mean, know your sizing, right? Like that's a huge part, is making sure that your sizing is generous, because our return rate is like 2%, which in the apparel world is really, really low. If it was, higher, if it was more in that 10 to 15 range, we wouldn't be nearly as profitable as we are, right? We'd be paying for those returns to come back to us. So just knowing your sizing in apparel is so important. And then the other thing, and I'm taking this into the new brands that we buy, is launch often, right? Whatever you can do, just continue to launch. We try and do weekly launches of old designs. So we took a page out of Disney's book and we put stuff back into the vault, right? So a design comes out and then it's gone. Not because we can't do it, because we won't do it, right? And then we have this whole series where we do back from the vault, right, for a special time, and so those launches, the constant iteration and constant launches in apparel, I think are absolutely key. So both the brands that I'm purchasing right now aren't doing that. I know that that's a huge piece that we can add immediately.
I love that. That's really cool. Okay, we're going to talk some secrets to scaling your e-commerce brand. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty. Now, you've already dropped some major bombs. You've dropped some amazing stuff about the gated launch. Like, I hope if every entrepreneur, every e-commerce brand, everybody selling anything should have already listened to that. I talked with the founder of Gunner Optics, and he does something similar with a diaper bag company that I'm blanking on the name of. But they do a similar thing where they use kind of a VIP list, but I don't know if they do it the same for launches as much as just kind of treating them separately. So I thought that was really cool how you explained that. And you covered, working through strengths. You covered some really cool stuff. But let's say you're looking at a brand, they come to you and they say, okay, we're really struggling to get off the ground. We've got some minimal sales. We've got some minimal traction. Like we know that there's people that are interested, but we're just trying to get some momentum. Like how do you help people? What are the e-commerce scaling secrets, right? How do you get people like the first big win?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I still actually occasionally will take phone calls from new brands. Just like I'm like, yeah, I'll give you 15 minutes to chat about that. I had a phone call with somebody like that this morning, and he was exactly in that same sort of space. For me, I'll kind of answer that with a bit of a story. So sure. I on our podcast, I had the former CMO at Movement Watches on, and they're one of the sort of like direct consumer darling stories of how they grew from nothing to 9 figures, like huge growth. And he was with them right from the start, and as their CMO. And I was like, so what would you do differently? And he said, I would pump even more money into performance marketing at the beginning. I'd worry about performance, and then worry about brand assets. So have your base brand, right? Make sure you validate that product with performance marketing to start, right? And then start to build the brand. So for me, I agree with that, except I would add performance marketing. So performance being Facebook, Instagram, Google, Snapchat, all of those sort of paid media channels, but to leverage an owned list, right? To turn those people into subscribers and not just purchasers, right? There's, people talk about 5 levels of Facebook traffic, right? Levels 1 through 5. And those levels, I'll just quickly go through them. So 1 being cold, 2 being people who have engaged with your brand, 3 being people who have viewed content on your website, so actually looked at a product, 4 being added to cart, and 5 purchasing. So everybody thinks it stops there, right? That's sort of the basic, is those 5. Absolutely not. There's level 6, 7, and 8, and that's where you make your money, right? Once somebody gets to level 8, where they're a brand advocate and they're actually advocating for you. On our VIP group, somebody will have a complaint, right? Oh, there was a hole in my shirt. That post gets flagged immediately by our community, and they say, hey, just reach out to them at customer service. There's no need for you to post that here. We don't do any of that. They advocate for us. So using your paid media to be able to eventually create brand advocates is what I would do to start. So really heavily invest in, first of all, a product, right? The product has to be good.
Right.
If you don't have a good product, you're not going to have repeat customers.
And that's where I really am not a fan of the trend right now that's happening of the Chinese drop shipping model, where I'm like, you're not building a brand, you're not building anything. You're literally like hoping to get one purchase out of someone before they realize you're selling them crap. And I don't dislike drop shipping, but I do dislike drop shipping products that aren't and a user experience that's not positive, right? So anyways, controlling that, making sure you're using a good product and then you have a plan to ascend them from someone that purchased. So you covered the first 5 and you covered number 8. What are levels 6 and 7?
Great question. So, I mean, it's really those sort of relational moments after that. So it's getting somebody to purchase again, right?
Second purchase. Yeah.
Yeah. So after you've made that sale, level 6 would just be them actually purchasing again.
Yep.
And then level 7 would then be having them tell their friends. In the relational, I've stolen all of this from Ryan Dice at Digital Marketer with his customer
not stolen.
Value journey.
It's repurposed.
I've repurposed it into the e-com world, but really think of level 7 as kind of introducing this person that you're now sort of dating to your parents, right? And you're going to start to tell your friends and be like, hey, like I shop at Kindred, like Little and Lovely is like the brand for.
They're not out there defending the brand yet.
No,
they're telling people about the brand.
Totally. Yeah. And I'm sure that there's even more nuances in these levels.
Sure.
These are the 8 levels that I use.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8
I
is
love it, man. I think it's cool.
Yeah, 8's like when your significant other says something dumb at a party, and you instead of attacking them, you stick up for them.
Okay. We'll pretend there's not a real example to that one. Yeah.
I'm that person at the party, so
okay,
I'm okay with that.
Good save. I like that. So, all right, man, you're covering some really powerful stuff, and I hope our listeners are picking up on it. What is, like, to me, you're an outdoorsy guy, and business to me is about building a lifestyle that you want, right? And like, if the business steals your lifestyle, it's broken. It should be funding your lifestyle. What's one major item on your personal bucket list that you're going to do this year?
Well, my goal is to go mountain biking 100 times.
100 times?
Yeah, so it's 2 times a week. To me, that's and then starting to go on Black Diamonds is the other one in that. So those are pretty attainable goals, I think.
That's okay. Yeah, I like bucket list items. Don't have to be unattainable. That's backfiring.
Yeah, totally. No, these are smart goals, right? These are ones that I know I can actually achieve. To me, that's huge. I get into the flow state when I'm mountain biking. I actually forget that if I'm with people, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like with a new person. Like,
downhill mountain biking, the flow I get into is my shoelaces usually in my handlebars. I'm not sure how it happens, but somehow that
happened to me the other day, man.
I'm not quite good enough for some of the trails I've attempted.
Yeah, and in British Columbia here, we have like our blues are always blacks. Every time I'm like, how is this a blue? Like you ride down this rock, like
when the guy told me you don't stop on this one, you just control your descent. Like I was like, I didn't control my descent. But all right, man. Hey, Jordan, really appreciate the conversation. I hope everyone you're listening and you realize the power of what Jordan has shared today. He dropped some really, really powerful things that you can apply immediately into your business, or if you're just getting started, really earmark these as things you should be doing when you do get started. Please check out his podcast, Secrets to Scaling Your E-commerce Brand, and check out littleandlively.com. Support the family brand there. It's pretty cool. Jordan, thank you so much for coming out the show. And to all my biz ninjas out there, it's your turn to go out and do something.
Thank you for listening to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with Tyler Jorgensen. Please make sure to subscribe so you're first to hear new interviews and episodes. If you found this podcast to be valuable, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to visit our online dojo at bizninja.com to claim your reward for listening to the show.